This is why Naoya Inoue is pound for pound number one. Hey guys, it's me, MMB, Mighty Max Boxing, and today I'll be giving the case for why Naoya Inoue is pound for pound number one. Inoue made his professional debut in October of 2012, knocking out 16-4 Kryson Amayao in the fourth round. After that, he built up a few good, decent victories, some tremendous victories for how early in his career it was, and actually fought for his first world title in April of 2014, taking on 29-2 Adrian Hernandez. Inoue dominated Hernandez, beat him up, and TKO'd him in the sixth round. Inoue continued with another nice victory against a man named Witawas Basapian, TKOing him in the 11th round, before moving up in weight, 2 weight classes, to take on the longest reigning champion in boxing, Argentina's Omar Narvaez. Narvaez had a record of 43 wins and 1 loss, with his only defeat coming to Hall of Famer Nonito Donaire by a unanimous decision. Inoue absolutely obliterated Narvaez. He looked phenomenal. He looked like the future of boxing, knocking him out in 2 rounds, becoming a 2-weight champion, and proving that he is a tremendous talent. Inoue continued winning his fights, looking good and looking explosive before making his United States debut in September of 2017, taking on Puerto Rican Antonio Nieves. In this bout, Inoue showcased his ability, his power, and how tremendous of a fighter he was, battering and hurting Nieves throughout the fight, dropping him in the 5th and making him quit after round 6. Inoue is looking absolutely sensational, and he is dominating everyone he takes on. In May of 2018, Inoue moved up and took on the United Kingdom's Jamie McDonnell. McDonnell was a pretty decent fighter of good fundamentals who was on a bit of a tear as of late. Inoue absolutely demolished him, knocking him out in 1 round. It was a phenomenal victory, it was a tremendous performance, and Inoue proving once again how great of a fighter he is, doing all of this at under 30 years old. Inoue then took on 5 months later Juan Carlos Payano in the World Boxing Super Series. This was the first matchup of the tournament, and Inoue solidified a Knockout of the Year candidate and the Ring Magazine 2018 Knockout of the Year, knocking out Payano in 1 round as well, but having it be an even more sensational KO victory. It was a beautiful knockout, and Inoue is continuing to prove how good of a fighter he is. A few months later, Inoue took on Puerto Rico's Emmanuel Rodriguez. Rodriguez was an undefeated fighter. He was a champion. He had a real belt, unlike the belt Inoue beat McDonnell for, the IBF. And in this bout, a lot of people believed that Rodriguez would give Inoue a tough match and eventually lose. However, Inoue proved everyone wrong by absolutely demolishing Rodriguez and knocking him out in 2 rounds. This was an incredible performance from Inoue, and this may be the performance that truly put Inoue on the map. Rodriguez was an undefeated fighter. He was very polished. He had very good boxing ability. He was expected to make this a fight, and Inoue absolutely obliterated him. We've seen that Rodriguez is no slouch, as he just came off of an upset victory against Gary Antonio Russell very recently. 6 months later, Inoue unified titles for the first time in his career, taking first ballot Hall of Famer Nonito Donaire. This fight is for the IBF and WBA Super Bantamweight titles, and this was the final match of the World Boxing Super Series. People actually expected Inoue to KO Donaire with somewhat ease. We all knew Donaire was a very good fighter, but this was a fight where we actually believed Inoue would actually win this fight relatively comfortably. However, Donaire did show what a great fighter he was and gave Inoue an amazing fight. And this was a very strong candidate for Fight of the Year and one Fight of the Year in many people's minds. It was a back-and-forth fight with Inoue somewhat in control, but not truly, as Inoue got badly hurt by Donaire's signature left hook throughout the fight. Inoue survived and kept pushing on, and he did not get dropped. However, he did have a broken orbital bone. Even with all of this, and Donaire being the more experienced fighter, Inoue persevered and was able to drop Donaire late in the fight, nearly stop him, and end up winning a competitive but deserved unanimous decision victory. Inoue put on a tremendous performance, and it was an incredible fight. About a year later, Inoue returned to America and had his first fight in America where he was headlining, taking on Australia's Jason Maloney. Maloney is a very respected fighter in his weight class, and a very solid victory for Naoya Inoue, as Inoue was able to drop and eventually knock out Maloney in the 7th round in a pretty good fight and an amazing performance. After this win, Inoue's career slowed down somewhat. In June of 2021, he took on Filipino fighter Michael Desmarinas and obliterated him in 3 rounds, and then 6 months later, he took on Aaron Depayan, a fight that no one really wanted to see, and Inoue was able to get him out of there in 8. After this, Inoue finally regained momentum, unifying once again unifying against Nonito Donaire, as Donaire went back to America and knocked out WBC champion French fighter Nordine Bali in 4 rounds and was looking very good. After his loss to Inoue, people saw Donaire have one last win in his career, and look very good in his fights post Inoue. However, in their second fight, in their rematch, many people expected Inoue to have to dig deep in this fight, but Inoue proved a lot of his naysayers wrong, and they didn't just beat Donaire, they didn't just stop Donaire, but absolutely demolished Donaire in 2 rounds. It was a Performance of the Year candidate of 2022, and Inoue absolutely obliterated the legend and became a 3-belt champion. After this, all Inoue had left was 1 belt, WBO title, before finally becoming an undisputed champion for the first time in his career. The man holding that title was British fighter Paul Butler. The fight got set for December 13th, 2022, yesterday, and Inoue dominated. He battered Butler around the ring, outclassed him, and stopped him in the 11th round, and became the undisputed bantamweight champion. At this point of Inoue's career, currently, he is a 3-weight champion. Obviously, he's only a champion at 1 weight class currently, but in his career has been a 3-weight champion, an undisputed champion. His record against champions is 19-0 with 16 wins coming by way of knockout, which is absolutely incredible, especially because he only has 24 fights, and he is not even 30 years old. This is a man who's conquered many weight classes. Maybe you can argue the only weight class he's truly conquered is 118, but he has been dominant in many weight classes. He has looked dominant throughout his career. He has very good wins. He has been very dominant in all of his bouts with not one controversial outing, and he is currently now an undisputed champion, and very dominant one at that. The clear-cut number 1 division, and the vast majority of people would pick him to be the number 1 guy at 122 as well. Now, after all I've told you, Naoya Inoue's quick career summary, is he pound for pound number 1? I've made a strong case for Inoue. However, with all of this said, I do not think Inoue is pound for pound number 1. The reason I don't think he's number 1 is not because of Inoue in particular. Yes, his resume is very good, but at the same time, he doesn't have too many top prime fighters. He has elite prime fighters such as Manny Rodriguez and obviously Jamie McDonald, Maloney, who are decent fighters in their own right. And of course, Nonito Donaire, 2 wins against Donaire, who is a great fighter but wasn't in his prime. He has a lot of solid wins and some very good wins, the Narvaez win being another very good win. However, Alexander Usyk has beaten some incredible opponents, and I would put him above Naoya Inoue by barely. I do believe this spot is somewhat up for grabs now, and if Inoue moves up to 122 and defeats Stephen Fulton, he can very well take that title. Or if he moves up and defeats Murujan Akhmadaliev, he can very well take that title. It truly depends on how it plays out. But one thing I will tell you guys, he may not be pound for pound number 1, but he is without doubt one of the best fighters in the sport. He's solidified himself to be a Hall of Famer. He is a true go-getter. He's a 3-weight champion and now an undisputed champion. And his legacy will be very good once his career ends. He's been a very dominant fighter. He's proven that he's willing to take on the best. As I mentioned, he has no controversy in his career, which is a very rare feat when you've had 19 title fights in your career. His power is very good. He's a guy who is very entertaining, and there's not much bad to say about Naoya Inoue. And he definitely has a case for pound number 1. However, even if all I've told you, all the names I've mentioned, I do not believe he is above Alexander Usyk. He's been very dominant, but the quality of his opposition, yes, very good, not absolutely tremendous. When you look at undisputed runs even, and yes, I have Inoue higher than everyone else not named Usyk in the sport, but when you look at his undisputed run, it was not the strongest run. Manny Rodriguez, Donaire twice, and Paul Butler is a good run, for sure, without doubt, but it does not match Alexander Usyk's run of Gassiev, Bradis, Glowacki. It does not match it, in my opinion. And then Usyk moved up and became a 3-belt champion at heavyweight, defeating Anthony Joshua twice. I don't think Naoya Inoue has a win as good as Anthony Joshua in his career. And that may be a very hot take, I understand. But keep in mind, Nonito Donaire was not in his prime in either fight. Paul Butler does not touch Anthony Joshua's ability. Jason Maloney is not as good as AJ. Manny Rodriguez is not as good as AJ. He has a very good resume. He's accomplished a lot. But number 1 pound for pound is too high at the moment. I do believe Naoya Inoue is number 2 pound for pound. And he's not far off from number 1. But he's not quite there yet. I would give him a chance to become a champion at 122. And once he does that, then we can really start negotiating and discussing if he should be pound for pound number 1. He's accomplished a lot in his career, Inoue. He's a very good fighter. He truly has outdone any other Japanese fighter in the sport of boxing, and that says a lot because Kazuto Ioka, Kenshiro, and many others have accomplished so much. But Naoya Inoue has proven himself to be a true champion, a true elite, and a truly respected fighter in the sport. He's not pound for pound number 1, but he's not far off from it. Anyways, you guys tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Is Inoue pound for pound number 1? Where do you have him? Would you put him at number 1 currently? Would you put him at number 2 currently if he's not at number 1? Because that's where I'd put him. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more of these types of videos. And have a good one, everyone.